Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another podcast edition of Create Yourself Imagery, Intimacy, Innovation, a place where people from all walks of life in various backgrounds come together to share their transformative stories of resilience, restoration. We talk about clarity, empowerment, and confidence. They are here to provide their useful tools, their resources, and their affirming guidance. I'm Joyce Kyles, your global speaker, teacher, author, trainer, and coach. And if you are ready to transition, transform, and thrive, this is the podcast for you. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If this is your thousandth time showing up for us, then welcome back. And as I always share, I encourage you to share the podcast with others in your circles of responsibility. You will not regret your decision to be here today. Our guest today, I am super excited about. I have had the opportunity to briefly meet this gentleman, but just upon our initial interaction, it was positive, and so much so that he has actually helped to influence a decision that I've made for my speaking journey. So I want to thank him publicly for that. He and my husband, I tell you, y'all have been very inspirational and influential in the decisions that I'm making. So I am just excited to present to some and introduce to others none other than keynote speaker and resilience strategist, Tiran Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I appreciate you taking your time to just let me be on here and share a little bit as well.
Likewise, sir. So we're just going to jump right into it here at this podcast. We just dive in and start talking about our journey. So the floor is going to be yours for the next few minutes. I would love for you to take some time to share with our audience about your Create Yourself journey. How did you start on this path?
Yeah. Okay. So I got to put some context behind it all, because the person that you see now is Tiran Jackson 2.0. The old version of me did not think I'd be going down this path of a reinvention, of a rediscovery of who I was. I started out as an engineer for over 20 years, worked for different major corporations, Rolls-Royce, GE, other places. And I thought that was what I was supposed to do. I thought my purpose in life was to provide for my family, really good in math and science, enjoy what I did as an engineer, and thought that was what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. I take you back to 2018, everything changed for me. As we were getting towards the summer of 2018, my wife, Malika, and I, we were getting ready to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary. And in doing so, we started planning on what we were going to do. And look, we did the same thing that people do all the time. They say, we're going to get away from here. We're going to go on vacation. We're going to spend a couple of days in paradise, and we're going to just disconnect from everything. And so the day before we were actually doing this, I dropped our son Cameron off with his aunt and uncle, told him, don't worry, mom and dad, we're going on vacation for a week, and that I'll be back in a week to pick him up. And then we would go and do other things because it was summertime. And so, he still had some time before he was going to go back to school. And Malika and I, we took a trip to the Bahamas. We got to the Bahamas. First 2 days were great. We had time at the beach, fruity drinks, time at the pool. On the third day, we actually decided we were going to leave our all-inclusive resort and go and explore the island. We got an excursion, or bought up a ticket to get on an excursion, and thought this was going to be the most adventurous part of our trip. We get to the marina to take off, and at 9 o'clock, we actually leave the dock, and everything seems great. And I feel like I am in the best situation imaginable. I was celebrating my 15th anniversary with my wife. We were on this boat. The weather was perfect. You could smell the aroma of the sea as we were getting ready to make a couple of stops along the way. And then at 9:05, my life changed forever. Unbeknownst to us, Malika and I were sitting right above a fuel tank. And there was a fuel leak that was emanating from the fuel line that was coming from this fuel tank to an outboard engine. Something caused a spark. And the next thing I know, the boat exploded. That's right, the boat exploded. I found myself waking up face down on the surface of a burning boat. There were 10 passengers on this boat. As I was starting to come to after being knocked unconscious, I realized that I was there, and there was nowhere to be found was my wife. Nowhere to be found were the other passengers. The only thing that I could do was, as I was starting to come to, waking up, I tried to push myself up, but I crumbled. I tried to push myself up again, but I couldn't get myself up. Now, we were real early in this trip. There was a second boat that took off around the same time we did. And passengers from that boat, they were still close. And they were yelling at me, get off the boat, get off the boat. And as I mentioned, I couldn't push myself up. I glanced down and I saw that my left ankle was severed. I could see my ankle bone, blood gushing out. Only thing I could do was put my fingertips on my right arm in the ridges on the surface of that boat to just drag myself a couple of feet to keep from burning from the flames. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I had a broken right foot, third-degree burns, fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, a broken collarbone. And as I said, my left foot was severed. And in the midst of this, I still didn't know where my wife Malika was. Well, she was thrown completely off the boat. And just to get to it, passengers from that second boat that I mentioned that were yelling at me, they actually risked their lives to swim over. The water was still shallow to pull me off the boat. As they did, and I'm grateful that they did, because 3 minutes after they got me off the boat, the second fuel tank exploded. Now, Malika and one other passenger were picked up by a third boat, and they were taken to a clinic. And eventually, I got to shore, and they got me to the clinic. And as they put me on a stretcher and wheeled me in, I could hear Malika, her moans, her agony, her suffering, and couldn't do anything about it because I was so broken. The doctor that was there, he told me that they were sending me to another hospital, that Malika would come later that afternoon. And so I'm thinking to myself, my wife must not be hurt as badly as I am, and that she's going to be okay and we're going to get through this. But as I go into surgery and wake up in ICU and find myself waiting for my wife, I get that news that no one wanted to hear. Doctors came in and they said, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it.
Oh,
She
wow.
died at that clinic. And so what was supposed to be a celebratory, momentous moment in our relationship turned out to be tragic. And here I am on vacation, broken physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, by something that I could never see coming my way. I go to sleep that night crying and hoping to wake up and it's just being a nightmare and not being true. But the reality of it was I woke up the next day in that hospital bed trying to figure out why this had to happen to us and what do we do now. I called our son and tell him over the phone that your mom's never coming home again. I end up having to come to the realization that I may not be here anymore. They ended up trying to reattach what was left of my left foot to my leg, and it was infected. The infection started going through my body, and my organs were starting to shut down. So in a matter of hours, I saw my vital signs on an EKG monitor over my head go from green to yellow to red. And at that point, I was starting to give up. I was starting to believe that God took my wife, and now he's about to take my life. And now my son is going to be here without both of his parents. And so in the midst of this, I was truly broken. Now, there was a whole lot of things that were happening in the background. And in the midst of it, and I was praying the whole time and hoping that something was going to happen, that this wasn't real. I went to sleep that night not expecting to wake up to see the next day, but I did. And then before I knew it, I was basically taken from the hospital in the Bahamas to a level 1 trauma center in Florida, where they tried to do everything that they could to save my life. And after I had to go through 5 surgeries in one day, include the amputation of my left leg, God spoke to me clearly. And he told me a couple of things. He told me that, Tiran, you have to accept the fact that Malika, it was her time to come home. He told me I was not going to go back to the life that I was living before, that I was no longer going to be an engineer, but there was going to be a different path for me and for me to be obedient and follow, and that it was going to be uncomfortable, that it was going to be unusual, it was going to be different and really take me out of who I thought I was. But it was meant for a bigger reason. He told me he was keeping me here for a reason, that there was a greater role for me in the world to impact others. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I had to come to accept that. And also he told me that if he wanted to, he could have taken my life 3 different times. When that boat exploded, when I was in the hospital and my vital signs were from green to yellow to red, the day before I went through 5 surgeries and struggled to get through that. But ultimately, he told me I had a choice. That I could feel sorry for myself and struggle to survive, or make a conscious decision to choose to be resilient and learn to thrive. And even though I didn't understand what it truly meant to be resilient in that moment, that was the moment in which the mindset started to shift slightly and started me on this journey to recovery and become this person who is Tiran Jackson 2.0. And so my business is called Reborn Resilient because I was reborn the day that incident occurred. But if it wasn't for resiliency, I wouldn't be here today. And so that's the start. So,
oh, wow. Tyron, just wow, my brother. That is, I knew that when I reached out to you about being a guest on this show, because see, I talk about what it means to transition, transform, and thrive. And I knew a little bit about your story, but this is my first time hearing it along with everyone else that's tuning in. And it is powerful, it's spiritual, it is truly about resilience. I hear some restoration in there.
yep.
I hear, as you're talking, I'm listening, and the direction. We always say, if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what we have in store, what we believe, and this is whether you believe and however you believe, because I always talk about on this show too, everyone doesn't have the same spiritual background and the same spiritual walk, and that's okay. So I always ask people to just tune in and tap into and connect to whomever and however it shows up for you. But we all have that inner voice, we all have that inner calling, we all have what I believe is a calling and a purpose over our lives. And so it's important that we walk in it, even if we don't understand it. And you have certainly taken a story that could have been tragic and ended tragically, and you have reshaped it and reformed it and turned it into something beautiful and powerful and walking in a different purpose. So I would love for you to share about your business and what you do and how you serve and you show up outside of this. This is powerful, sir. Very powerful.
Well, look, I'm going to start off by saying this, Joyce, and this is the core message that I want everybody who is listening and wants to understand about what it truly means to be resilient to get. The resilience is not about regaining what was lost, but it's reshaping what still remains. And it's what we do with what still remains that's going to control the narrative of our lives from this day forward. And so I was in that broken state, that broken space, but now I had to go through this journey of recovery that was going to be hard, difficult, challenging, just to be able to get back to life again. And so when you talk about the restoration, there is an element of restoration in that. I went from, after going through that, suffering from mental health challenges, depression, anxiety, survivor's remorse, severe grief, having to PTSD from all of that. That was part of my journey, from having to be physically broken to being put back together again. I mean, you think about Humpty Dumpty, and we talk about but literally they had
Yes,
to
sir.
put me back together again. And then on top of that, I had to learn how to walk with a prosthetic, and had this mentality, this thought that I was always going to be different, and I was going to always walk with a limp. But, and this is part of the spiritual side, God, he look, I don't look like what I've been through. If you didn't know, you would never know that I had a prosthetic leg. The doctors told me that it was going to take me 8 to 10 months to get back to walking, and it was always going to be an obvious limp. I was walking in 3.5 months. I started jogging. I ran my first 5K after 6 months and started learning how to swim with one leg. All of these amazing things as part of the restoration process, but it also rebuilt me, not just physically, but when we started looking at what it takes to be able to go out there and do something in the world, to be able to rebuild with the state of confidence that, hey, I did something I didn't think I was able to do. What else can I go do? And how else can I be used and create something great out of what's been broken in the world? So all of these are just parts of what I do. And now when you ask me, what do I do? And I love how you describe what you do. I'm a professional speaker. I go out there and I speak to organizations, companies, groups, and show them the true power of resilience and how it aligns in what they need in leadership, in sales, in order to go out there and have the mindset to overcome the adversity that they face. But I also am a certified life coach now, and I help those going through trauma, tragedy, or transition make a transformation so they can become triumphant. So it's one of these things where once you've gone through these life experiences and you have found the secret to your success for overcoming, you can utilize that in order to help show people how they can apply it in their lives. And that's what I do. So now, as I was helping, in one way as an engineer for an organization doing something in a specific manner, I realized I can touch and impact so many others with a greater voice and with a greater sense of inspiration and hope to show them that they can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, and one of the things that you mentioned is how you have taken what you learned from the engineering space and you found another way to apply it. And I think that that's so key. Sometimes I think that when we come from a different background, a different life story, a different path, sometimes we feel like the space and the place that we're in this particular season, that those other skills, gifts, and talents that we have become moot. And that's not true. You can pull from that and use it as an elevating piece and tool to go out and do the purpose that is now in front of you. So I love that you are incorporating and implementing that. And congratulations that you are a certified life coach, in addition to being the keynote speaker and doing all the things. The other thing that I want to lift up too is that I did not know that you had a prosthetic leg. When you're mentioning that, I want to share that with you, that I didn't know. I'll tell you when I found out, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I met you back in the spring.
Yep.
Maybe 2 weeks ago. You have some of the best graphics to talk about yourself, talk about your business, just share a sense of what it means to be resilient. And I saw a picture of you that you shared. And I said, well, look at that. I did not know. Because like I said, I knew a little bit of your story, but I did not know the depths of your story. And that was somewhat by design, because I do try to read and study and learn about my guests as they come on. But one of the things that I love about this podcast that others have shared with me that they appreciate is that it's authentic, and we just go with the flow and we share and we talk. So I wanted to learn the same ways that our audience is learning. So I appreciate that. So I'm gonna switch gears just a bit.
Let's go.
I talked a little bit about NSA, the decision. Well, I said that I made a decision, and it was with the National Speakers Association. We have a Georgia chapter here. And so I would love for you to just share a tad bit about your role in it, and for those who may be interested in taking their gift, skills, and talents and moving more into a speaker space. So it's kind of a twofold, a little bit about NSA, but then also you in developing what you have learned from your experiences to become a speaker, because I know that people that are listening are interested in taking that path.
Yep. No problem. Thank you, Joyce. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about NSA and just my role now. I am the president of the Georgia chapter as of actually later this week, officially, of the National Speakers Association of Georgia. And what NSA is a community, a group of those who utilize their voice and their message to make an impact in the world. Now, this can come through, most people think of it as speaking, but also for those who do workshops, for those who are MCs, for those who are, counselors in some way, for those who are, like I say, using their voice and not just to become better speakers or orators, but to be able to build a business around it. How do you look? It's a lot of public speakers out there. Public speakers get asked to do stuff. They get paid, maybe lunch and a gift card or something, and they go about their way. But the thing that we need to understand is that when you have a special gift and a uniqueness, and I want to go back to this uniqueness, because when you talked about having a expertise or a background in one area, and then thinking you need to pivot or shift or change, but understanding that when what you really are doing are you are finding that uniqueness and those things that are preparing you to be able to pull it together and deliver it in a way that is going to resonate with the audience who needs the solution that you and only you can provide. Then now you have a unique commodity that can be shared and monetized out in this world. NSA, when I first came to NSA, I realized a couple of things that sometimes, especially when you know you got a message to share and you know that people tell you all the time, hey, you helped me, you changed my life, you did something for me, and others are telling you this, that is the sign that you have something that you need to be able to go out there and spread even further. And NSA taught me ways of being able to actually implement it. Now, I'm a person who, going back to the engineering me, I'm very process oriented. I think in, okay, what do I need to do to get from point A to point B effectively, efficiently, and to be better at it? I'm not a natural speaker, but I understood I had to learn how to speak in order to be able to get the results and the outcomes and to get companies to pay, 5-figure checks to be able to get on their stage and talk. But in doing so, there are going to be bits and pieces of information that others have already done that I can learn quicker. Anybody who has a mentor or a coach, you understand that part of the value that they bring is they're going to help show you not only the right steps along the right pathway, but also the pitfalls to avoid in order to get to the outcomes that you're looking for. And NSA, when I first went, I realized that this is a community of people who are learning and doing the same things that I'm looking to do. So I need to be here with that group. And also every time I came away with some new nuggets that I could use and apply to my business to increase my ability to be successful out there in the marketplace. And so what I found is that in being in that community, it has benefited me significantly, and I have served in order to help others do that. And like I said, Joyce, it's an honor because now I get to be the president and be able to help show others and give people the value that they need so they can start elevating and taking those next steps along their speaker journey in order to be even more successful.
Okay, well, see, that's the reason that I joined, is because I wanted to further my career. I've been talking, speaking, teaching, training for a number of years, but I wanted to be in a space of community where I can learn, I can share, I can grow, be in that like-mindedness, if you will, that like-minded space. And, whatever it is that you're doing, I'm a life learner. So I believe that you can still be good at something, but connect with individuals who can show you how to be even better, how to articulate it even better, how to pivot and to change up some things so that you can move from good to great, from great to excellent, and just keep elevating and elevating and elevating. Because I don't ever want to be where I'm not learning, I'm not growing, that I'm not showing up as my best self, and that I'm not giving my audience the best of me, the best that I have to offer. So I might be stifling some spaces that, I need some help and some guidance to grow and expand. And so this is the space and the place to do it. I'm personally excited. So I'm going to encourage anyone who is listening right now, especially if you're in the Georgia area, you need to join us specifically if you're in Georgia.
There you go. Tell us, Joyce.
Come on in. I'm happy to share a link for like the next events that we're having. Tiran is the new president, so I'm excited to not only be a member, but to get to come in at a time that he's taking over in leadership. I've certainly enjoyed the opportunities that I've had leading up to this point for me. So I know anyone who's listening will have the same outcomes that I did. Just give it a chance and show up. A lot of times you can come and it's complimentary, especially your first time coming out. A lot of, you have a lot of opportunities where you can come, or it's at minimal cost. So even if you decide 3-4 times down the road, hey, I still haven't quite decided yet, I'm gonna just tell you, instead of spending, each time for each ticket, just come on and make that investment. So that's my plug.
There you go. I love it. Thank you, Joyce. That's great. We're gonna have to get you on the stage sharing that same thing real soon.
All right, sounds good to me. Well, sir, I know that we are starting to get down to the end of our broadcast time together. So I always ask my guests as we close out. And you have actually shared quite a few nuggets and gems, but I always use this space for two things. One, to ask if you have any tools, resources, any gems, any words of encouragement that our listeners can take with them to use in the short as well as the long term. And then the best ways to connect with you, which is always going to be listed underneath the podcast. So,
Yep.
floor is yours.
So yeah, so like I said, I not only help those who are going through some of life's greatest challenges, and you just find yourself stuck and paralyzed. Now, specifically, some of the people I work with are widows and widowers who are still struck with grief and trying to figure out how they're going to move forward after they've lost their spouse. For those who are going through challenges, I can give you guys a link, or if you can go to rebornresilient.com, you will find my roadmap to resiliency, which gives a couple of 7 different categories in which, if you apply one or two of them to whatever your situation you're dealing with in life, it'll give you some guidance on how to get through that. Secondly, I also want to encourage anybody, if you really want to get more detail on that process and on me and my journey, if you go to choosingresilience.net, you'll see a copy of my book, Choosing Resilience, All Things Work Together for Good, which sort of outlines sort of just how resilience became a part of who I am today. And so with that, look, I think it's been a great time, Joyce, here. And like I said, if you know somebody, it might not be you, it might be somebody you know who is really going through a hard time. And as I said, what I do is I help those going through trauma, tragedy, or transition make a transformation so they can be triumphant again. Emphasis on again, because at one point in time, we were in a great place. But what do we do when something happens to us and we got to figure out how to get back there? Or even, in my case, get even to a greater level than where you were before and leverage that adversity in order to create positive growth. Positive growth. Use the pain that we go through to find our purpose and use that purpose to create a better version of who we are. That's what it's all about. And so feel free to connect with me. You can find me at Tiran Jackson or Tiran Jackson Official on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as well as I said, rebornresilient.com to learn more about what I'm doing and how I'm helping out in the world and how I may be able to help you.
Tiran Jackson, thank you so much for all that you shared with us today, because I am truly inspired. You are definitely the definition of what it means to transition, transform, and thrive. And so I'm looking forward to staying connected with you through NSA, through just following your journey. Definitely would like to have you to come back and join us at a later date, because I know that there is more to your story.
We hadn't touched the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that's
not
just the
at
high
all.
level. Yeah, so we got so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you are yet thriving in all sorts of new chapters in your life. So, I didn't speak on all of them, but feel free, if you want to close out with one of the most recent ones, feel free to share, sir.
Yeah, no doubt. I found love again. I just got remarried last week. So as we go into 2026, I got a lot of great things ahead, and I'm blessed and being able to move forward happy and in a powerful manner, which we all should be looking to do.
Yes, sir. So congratulations to you. And I wanted you to say it and lift it up, because those who follow me and know me well know a lot about my story. And part of my thriving journey included finding love again too.
Yep.
And so I big up my husband. Matter of fact, if you listen to the very beginning of how I opened up, I shared that he was encouraging to get me on this journey to join an NSA and just encouraging me in this speaking journey that I'm on. So I'm a huge component of lifting up love and support, and having that support system, and knowing that that is an area that we can thrive in after trauma, after, whatever we have experienced in our lives, that there is love after. So I'm definitely going to have you back on the show as we talk more about thriving and healthy relationships and what resiliency and restoration looks like, and how we merge all of those things into our lives of work. So thank you so much for being a guest today. It is my joy to have had you on the show.
No problem. Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate it.
And to my listening audience, thank you so much for tuning in, because without you, I could not host this podcast. So as I always say, thank you for tuning in, and let's go out and live the life that we desire and deserve. And remember, you can do that at any age. I'm Joyce Kyles, your global speaker, author, trainer, and coach. Wishing you well in this new year, in this new season, and let us continue to transition, transform, and thrive together.